Welcome, guys. Thank you for coming to FilmFellas Cast 6.
Cheers.
Thank you for inviting us.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Let me do a few quick introductions. Robert Primes, essentially you're, well, esteemed ASC member. You represent, I guess, to us, Hollywood. Your mainstay is episodic TV, is that correct?
I probably have the biggest credits in that, but I wouldn't say that's the mainstay of my heart.
Philip, you're an interesting animal.
It's an interesting way of putting it.
You're known as a sort of a web celebrity now for filmmakers, but your background, you sort of cut your teeth with shooting for the BBC?
No, I actually started off in news for Sky. I did traveling around the world doing all that sort of stuff.
Okay.
I learnt my trade that way.
Right.
Moved into docs and then into sort of commercials and bits and pieces like that.
Nice.
Yeah, and some corporate stuff.
And Trent Opaloch, first of all, congratulations on District 9.
Thank
awesome
you.
Movie, awesome
Thanks
movie.
very much.
But I sort of see you as sort of the new guy, the break-in guy.
Certainly for features, yeah, right.
For features, right. Pretty much your mainstay was spots. Is that sort of how you made your living?
Started
before?
off with music videos, and then I got into commercials,
right.
and now District 9 is my first feature.
Right. I'll give you a little background on myself. Since, let's see, the late 80s, I've had a comfortable, constant living doing corporate industrial films that have really included a lot of styles of shooting, which is nice, you know, for that variety. So I've been doing that up until, let's see, till me and Steve started Zacuto in about 2000.
Where is that guy, by the way?
Don't worry about why.
I have to say, it's really quite pleasant.
Oh, really?
Isn't it today? It's like, it's a lot more sort of, I don't know.
Don't worry about him.
It's
He's
more
taken
community feel rather than sort of like an overbearing feel.
Oh, okay. If you insist.
Yeah, let's talk about you. When did you, because you shot commercials and all sorts of stuff, didn't you?
Yeah, it's all been mixed in there, but the bulk of it is corporate industrial work. That was a good experience. I was a Steadicam operator between 88 and 98, I guess it was. I specialized in that for a while, so a good mix in there. All right, so Robert, fill us in a little bit on your background, because what I want to get into is what makes a successful DP. By knowing a little bit more about how your different paths to success, or we can kind of...
I was a San Francisco filmmaker for 11 years. I did documentaries, I did a few feature-length documentaries. Some of my work impressed a Hollywood commercial house, and my very first job in Hollywood was as a director-cameraman doing commercials. I lost that job. I was shooting a documentary in Peru on a spiritual healer. Shortly after that, a little discouraged from how hard it was to break into LA. I mean, emotionally, frankly, I was down. Came back, did pretty well in commercials, and then got a big break shooting episodic 30-something. It turned out the first year we shot it, it was voted the best drama. And I went from totally obscure to being an entity in Hollywood. And then the first feature, I got a big feature with Mel Gibson and Goldie Hawn after that. And then the one after that, from the same director I got fired from. So, I mean, you're talking about the original roller coaster of shooting upward only to fall down, to go back upward and all that.
Mine's kind of interesting because I was working staff for a company for many years doing TV news. Traveled the world, did loads of great stuff. Learned to work really fast.
Film or video for TV news?
All video. And then moved into documentaries with the company. And then about 3 years ago, I decided, okay, if I'm not going to do this now, I'll never do it. So I left and went down the freelance route.
Right.
About 3 years ago was when it was really starting to get exciting.
Part of what I want to get into.
It was kind of really the perfect time to have done it.
Not bad timing.
Yeah.
All right, Trent, let's hear a little bit about your background.
Well, I started off actually with, I started assisting in my early teens, like 14, 15.
Before film school?
Yeah, years before film school, yeah. I was in a band before film school.
Oh.
That was like sort of my path that I was going to follow. But so I started loading mags and assisting for my stepdad, Doug Steele, who's a nature cinematographer. So that was sort of my first test, or taste of it rather, and then he sort of got me to go down the more traditional path of going into film school. From there I went into music videos, got into commercials of course, and now District 9 is my first feature.
Right. People are going to want to know, how did you sort of break into features? But essentially it's more the relationships you forged that got you into that, and got you that sort of break, if you want to call it that?
Yeah, totally. I mean, in shooting music videos, you meet people like team members that you're working with. You know, you forge relationships that you know, you love working with these guys, and it sort of carries on from there. So I really like music videos. It's very experimental. You can have a lot of fun with them, but it gets very repetitive. So it was a good step for me to start getting into commercials myself.
Got it, right.
And I still very much enjoy commercials, but you know, once you've started doing features, I think you sort of look at commercials in a different way.
You look down on them, or?
Not down on them, but it's more sort of mercenary work. You know, like
Right.
you know,
Pay the bills.
for myself. Yeah, it's
I've heard that from other DPs that they like to mix it up a bit, do some spots, do features. That feature or spots, depending on what level you're at, may be more lucrative even.
without a doubt.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic paycheck. You're going in and out of a creative sort of environment that's really cool. You're not stuck in it.
And of course now you're having all kinds of other opportunities come up, right?
Yeah, there's a lot
More with
of
Neon.
opportunities for features, which is definitely what I really enjoy. I just love the storytelling, the performances, the characters. I love all that aspect.
Yeah.
And commercials, there's some really cool visual things, but there's not the depth there that you get in either.
Right. What is a successful director of photography?
To my mind, what it's all about in the end game is the amount of joy you've had in your life. And what you do every day, you're enthused about and you're hot about and it lights you up and you're involved in it, then you've spent that day as well as you can spend a day.
Yeah.
If you waste it being grumpy and upset or something like that, then you're kind of like, well, there's a day of your life that you kind of didn't do it. So to me, what's successful is keeping involved in something that turns you on. If your excitement, your enthusiasm, your feeling, your passion for something, if you can sustain that, then I think you have a successful life. You said one other thing about the commercial thing being, oh, it's lucrative and all that. I'm a weird guy for being an American. There's a certain amount of money that you need or you're unhappy. There's another amount of money that gives you some nice toys that delights you. That's not that much unless you really need crazy exotic. Earlier we were talking about fast cars and how in most cities they have fast cars just to show you can do it because there's no roads where you can exercise them like that. So I think that, yeah, the money's nice and it gives you security and you can do things, but we are so much on a money basis and I think there's a huge disconnect. If you are fulfilled, if you shot great that day, if you go home, and there have been days I couldn't leave the set. I watched the guy with the broom sweep up. It was such a great day. What could you buy with all the money in the world that touches that? So I'm off this money standard.
I mean, for me, I would say is that obviously money is essential because we can't live without it.
But up to a certain level.
But what I would, with me, every time I get a lottery ticket and I think, you know, I'm going to win this £35 million, I know very well that I would continue working, doing what I'm doing, and it would give me a chance to be able to choose what I want to do a little bit more. But there's no way I could ever stop working. If somebody, you know, even if I didn't need the money, I would just go and do it.
Bored out of
free.
your mind, probably.
It's because I just, you know, I love what I do, and I just love capturing moments and things. If I feel, if I didn't have a camera with me, and it's just
So, but to you,
But wait, but that love
Yeah.
is what makes you great. I mean, you want career advice. If you love what you're doing, if you're into it, if you're, wow, look at this and all that, you're going to attract producers, directors. They're gonna take on that love. Plus, you'll be better because you'll keep on learning. I mean, really, it's not as much about networking. I found in my life, anytime I was ready, I was really ready for something. Somehow or other, it had a tendency to come along. It doesn't mean I got every job I wanted or anything else like that. If you're really in it for the right reasons, rather than a means to an end, you attract people.
to classify yourself as a successful DP, do you have to be earning money at it?
you know, what do you call success then? Do you call success producing great work, or do you call success making a career out of it? That's the question, I guess.
Or status.
That is the question.
Status hurts me. I mean, I'm going along, and one of my buddies gets this job that, geez, I really would have liked to get that. And I've in my life, I've said, oh, doggone it, I wish I had that, or why am I only shooting this instead of that? But it's a false god. What's essential is that whatever you're shooting, you make something of it. You can take something very simple, you do it with imagination, you get the satisfaction. That's what life's about. It's not about what rung of the ladder you're at.
It's almost the biggest kick I get out of working is getting probably one of the most boring gigs you could be given, and trying to make
Turn it into
turn
something. Exactly.
Well, it's the challenge.
Exactly.
Challenge,
They tell you what they want, and you say, oh, why don't we do this? And then you make something really ordinary, really quite special, and they're like, wow, we've never had anything like that before. If you don't bring the passion into everything you do, then it becomes a 9-to-5 job, which none of us want it to be.
When did you consider yourself a success? Obviously before District 9, right?
Yeah, I think it was when I felt comfortable rendering out the images that I had in my head. Like for me, it's never been about cash, because I think a very unsuccessful DP would be somebody that was, making piles of money and not enjoying their work. I mean, that would not be.
Well, that would be
success
torture
to me. Yeah, that would be like the worst thing ever. But when I started, I'd get a creative idea and I would experiment and try to get something. And when I would be happy with the results, I felt more confident and sort of I felt very successful at what I was going after at that point.
Right on.
So,
which is still occurring, right? I mean, you're always learning and you're always sort of experimenting and stuff. Sometimes you fall on your face, but I think it's pretty important to keep that going.
and we've probably all been asked this, but youngsters come up and say, so what's my path to success? How do I get there? How do I, get to do what you're doing?
Oh man, I just think shoot.
Don't you hear that all the time?
Yeah, sure. I just think
So what do you
shoot.
tell them? I mean, there's a lot of ways probably, especially now these days.
Yeah.
But
Everybody has to practice. Cinematography is nothing you can learn from a book and from doing some things. You got to practice. Music videos are a great way to practice because they're experimental. You push things. Commercials are of a huge variety. You do macro. You do all these things. And I think for all of us, we need to do to shoot a lot of media, see it, shoot it, see it, get in the situation. This is a great idea. Oh, it stinks. This is this.
you got to try and fail a lot.
And exactly, you have to try and fail a lot, and you got to practice. And it's nothing like a still photographer. Maybe you can go out and do it on your own. Well, you can't do it as easily on your own. So I think no matter what you do, you have to find a way of practicing.